I've often tried to remember if I've ever been nervous going on stage, like really nervous, and I haven't. I get excited, but I don't get nervous. I get excited and then I get okay, let's do this, and then go out there and do it.
History repeating. Welcome back to History Repeating and our first episode with the fabulous Lynda Laurence, who's had an incredible career as a supreme and as a backing vocalist for the one and only Stevie Wonder. Lynda has had music in her blood her entire life. Her father was Ira Tucker of the highly influential gospel group, the Dixie Hummingbirds, and her mother played piano and was studying to become a DJ. So it's no surprise that Lynda grew up in a very musical household.
For me, it was most definitely the case. My father was Ira Tucker of the Dixie Hummingbirds, a gospel group that was celebrated with Grammys and, everything. He has his own exhibit in the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, and he was awarded he became what they call a national treasure over here. And so, he was the best singer in my life that I ever knew. Okay. And so I grew up listening to my father. He sang with a group. And so that was something that was definite. My mother played piano, but all of her siblings, had to learn to play a musical instrument. And she chose piano, but she didn't really stick with it. But she could still play a little. But really and truly, it was all about music in my house.
And what were you listening to when you finally, were maybe a teenager and were able to, find your own music?
When I was 10, I remember my mother went to school to be a DJ. She wanted to play gospel music on the radio. And her thesis was to do her own radio show. And she chose this album called, she wanted to do a jazz show as her thesis. And she chose an album called The Late Late Show by a jazz artist, singer, Dakota Staton. And when I heard that album and I heard Dakota Staton, I was 10. And I remember I learned every song that was on that album. I loved it. I loved the picture that she had on because she had her beautiful nails and her hair and her makeup. She looked fabulous. And the songs were really great. So at 10 years old, jazz really became my music of choice.
And did you kind of know from an early age that, music was your thing, that you really wanted to do that?
Well, my mother had this dream that she saw me singing on top of the Empire State Building. It used to be a really huge building in New York. And she said she got up and she asked me, Lynda, can you sing? And I said, put me on the kitchen table. So she put me on the kitchen table and I started to sing my father's songs. And I was 2.5, just making 3. And so she knew then. So she sent me to vocal school when I was 3. Can you believe it? And I was in vocal school until I was about 5. And from that point on, I knew that singing was what I was going to do. And I didn't know how, I didn't know where or anything like that. I just knew that it was just innate. I knew I was going to do it. It was not something that I had to think about.
Lynda's father, Ira Tucker, was a member of the Dixie Hummingbirds for 70 years, from 1938 to 2008. So it's no surprise that Lynda got her first musical experiences from him. But it was with Stevie Wonder that things really took off.
I started performing with my father when I was, 7, I think. And we went on the road. I went on the road with him. I had a tutor and everything. And so we went on the road for a while. No, my mother took me off the road when I was 7. So I was about 6, 5 or 6 when I went on the road with Daddy. And I would sing the Lord's Prayer as an opening to their shows where they would perform. But my mother took me off the road when I was 7. She said she wanted me to have a quote unquote, common life, normal life. And so my brother and I formed a band when my brother is not a singer, but he was like my big brother, so I couldn't do it without him. So we had a band and we would play around. I lived in Philadelphia, so Temple University is in Philadelphia, and we lived near there. So the sororities and fraternities would have parties, and I was about 14. I think he was about, I think my brother was about 16 or something like that. And I wasn't even 14. I think he was about 16, and I think I was probably about maybe 12 or 13. And we would, go around and play. I played the organ and I sang, and, so my brother would play the tambourine or whatever. It was kind of fun. So that was young when I did that. But to get into the industry, um, I started, how old was I? When I recorded Signed, Sealed, Delivered with Stevie Wonder, I was 18, I think, because I think he was 17 when he recorded it.
How did
And that's
you
what got me into the industry.
and how did you, meet Stevie Wonder and then become a part of the third generation?
When uh my father's group worked everywhere, right? And so when they worked in Chicago, the Staple Singers, another group that was very well known, excuse me, I'm sure that you've heard of the Staple Singers.
Yeah.
Anyway, whenever my dad's group, the Dixie Hummingbirds, would go to Chicago, the Staple Singers, Mom Staple, would always have them over for dinner. So at this particular time, there was at the Uptown Theater in Philadelphia, there was a show that had, all the different people on it, the Staple Singers, and I think the Spinners and the Contours, and I'm not exactly sure all of them, but those ones. Oh, I think Gene Chandler, and then Stevie Wonder was on it as well. And so my mother told me, Lynda, go up to the Uptown and tell the Staples that we're going to have them over for dinner, because that's what they do. In Chicago, they did dinner. In Philadelphia, we did dinner. And so I went over to the Uptown to tell the Staple Singers that. And Mavis, who I've known for years since I was little, she embraced me, and I said to her, I hear Daddy's music. Who in the world is playing the Dixie Hummingbirds at this rock and roll show? And she said, oh, that's the Spinners. They love the Dixie Hummingbirds. I said, you're kidding. She said, no, you can hear them playing. They play their music all the time. And I said, wow, I want to meet them. Well, on the way to meeting them, Stevie was coming around the hall with someone, walking with someone. And she said, well, do you want to meet Stevie Wonder? I said, are you kidding? She said, no. Yeah. I said, okay. He was just turning 16. So that means I was 17, because I'm 1 year older than he is. And when I met him, Mavis Staple introduced us. And she said, do you know whose daughter she is? And he said, no. She said, Ira Tucker of the Dixie Hummingbirds. And he went, what? I know all their music. I said, you're kidding. He said, no. Can you sing? And I said, yes. And he said, well, if you ever come to Detroit, look me up. I said, I'll do that. And don't you forget. He said, oh, I won't. And so when I moved to Detroit, that's what I did. Hamilton Bohannon, another friend of mine, it was a drummer. He took me to Stevie Wonder at the Motown one day, and Stevie was recording, and he said, "I'm recording a song. Would you like to do some backup?" I mean, this was, how insane is all that, right? I said,
Yeah.
yes, of course. And so he told me what he wanted, and I went in with Sarita Wright and Vanetta Fields and myself, and we went in and recorded Signed, Sealed, Delivered. He gave me that back out yell in the back, that standout backup part, the yell. Everybody thinks it's him, but it's me. And then he took myself and my sister and another girl. We formed the group, his first backup group, to take on the road with him. And we went on the road with him. And that's how that started.
Stevie and Lynda were both teenagers when Signed, Sealed, Delivered hit the charts. And to this day, it's one of Stevie's most popular songs. Soon, Lynda, with her sister Sundre, became Stevie's backing singers on the road. And the musical lessons she picked up from Stevie are still with Lynda to this very day.
Of all the songs that you've written, what song do you think is the most requested, in general? And he stopped and he said, Signed, Sealed, Delivered. I said, you're kidding. He said, nope. I get more requests for that than anything.
Now,
So that really made me feel pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's something because I mean he's got so many songs
Yes,
that
he
everyone
does.
knows.
He
But
definitely does.
and what was it like then going out on the road with Stevie?
Well, I remember his mother was alive then, and she said, "All right, I want you to look after my son." I said, "Definitely, I will." I became, because my personality is such, but I became like the leader of the backup group, right? So I told her, I said, "Well, we'll do the best we can. We'll make sure that he's well taken care of. Don't worry about it." So she said, "Okay." And of course, he had, people to do everything for him, but he really liked the fact that he was taking girls on the road with him for the first time, because he was growing up. You know what I mean? He was, like I said, when I met him, he was 16. And by the time we went on the road, I think he was 17 or just turning 18, 17, something like that, when we went on the road. So we were all kids, really. And so she just said, take care of my son. So he would always make sure that we had adjoining rooms. He would do that because, I would tell him, we learned things like how to tell him, your food is at 6 o'clock and 4 o'clock and 2 o'clock, things like that. We always wanted to make sure that his clothes were, the right kind of clothes, because of course he didn't choose his own clothing. But sometimes the people that did, we didn't like it. So we would tell him, we don't like that, and he'd go, "Oh, okay, well, I'm not wearing this anymore. The girls don't like it," so things like that. So it was a lot of fun. And it was a learning experience for me, because he was so prolific at that time in his life. Music was just exuding from this man. And he taught me how to play the tambourine. I learned, different ways of doing harmonies with Stevie. I recognized the fact that any instrument that they put in front of him, if he had about 5 minutes, he'd learn how to play it, because he had perfect pitch. Just, so many things that I still carry with me today that I learned when I was with Stevie.
Lynda had so much fun working with Stevie Wonder, but her biggest success musically had not come yet. In 1972, Lynda would join the iconic girl group The Supremes. And once a Supreme, always a Supreme. So stay tuned for our next episode with Lynda to find out how she joined this legendary Motown trio. Until next time, this has been History Repeating.